everybody. Welcome to La Lista, a LatinX writers podcast. I am your host, Ruben Mendive, and I have a brand new writer for you today. I always start the podcast by having the guests introduce themselves, sort of who you are, how you identify.
Hi there, my name is Steve Dez, and I am a serialpreneur, a producer, an investor, and a writer.
All right, great. So the first question I ask everybody is, sort of where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico, which is a very small city, small town from San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is the capital. And yeah, that's where I had my developing years, and I would say most of the years of my life were spent out there.
Okay, that's cool. And do you want to ask about your parents? What do they do? Do you have are they native to Puerto Rico, Just because you never know, people sometimes move to Puerto Rico from somewhere else.
Yeah, actually, so my entire family, that's my mom, my dad, my sisters, my uncle, auntie, grandparents, they're all from an island next to Puerto Rico called Dominican Republic.
Got it.
And most people that actually go to Puerto Rico from the Dominican Republic, they do so, especially back in the day. I don't know how it is these days, but back in the day was illegally. Mm-hmm. So the same way that they would say, Cubans will get to Miami.
Yeah.
Basically, that's kind of the same way that like Dominicans get to Puerto Rico. The only thing is that it's shorter compared to the distance between Cuba and Miami. And basically, my mom and my dad did that, and they got to Puerto Rico, and they had me there. So immediately, because Puerto Rico being a U.S. territory, mm-hmm. I was being Puerto Rican, I was an American citizen.
Yeah.
Versus my entire family, they had to, become residents and then become citizens. Mm-hmm. So I knew from the get-go for some reason that I was different because of that. Because my parents and my family in general had to work harder than me, in a sense.
Yeah, and I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know people came from other islands to Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And now that you're saying it, seems like my parents are also immigrants. Mm-hmm. Now I'm thinking why didn't they just go to Puerto Rico? And so
they probably didn't know.
Yeah, they probably didn't know.
Because what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
So there's people. I have friends that they never has stepped outside of Puerto Rico in their lives. Mm-hmm. And I have other friends that they have, but the only place they've been outside of Puerto Rico is Disneyland or Disney World in Orlando, Florida. So you don't know what you don't know. And for I think for my parents, especially back in that day, they grew up in the 60s. Mm-hmm. They were just we can see there's an island there, and supposedly I hear rumors that they make dollars out there and it's a better type of life. So it was kind of in a way that was the American dream for them. And they went to Puerto Rico and they worked their butts off to raise kids and have them to have a better education, a better quality
mm-hmm.
of life that they had.
Yeah, that's interesting, having this American dream based in a territory. Mm. And I do want to ask what sort of caused your parents to want to move over there? Do they talk about what the Dominican Republic was like?
They don't talk much about what it was like. I know my mom and my dad had a very different childhood mm-hmm. because my dad grew up with a brother and a sister. My grandpa from my dad's side, he was in the military, but for Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. So he was a little stricter with his kids. But they grew up in a pretty, I would say, in the Dominican world, I would say lower to upper middle class.
Okay.
My mom grew up in the countryside, and she grew up with 14 brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot. And because there were so many kids and because he was in the countryside, my mom, if she wanted to go to school, or anybody or a brother and sister wanted to go to school, they had to go to school by themselves. It wasn't like my grandma was very attentive to them. Mm. So I think my mom at a very young age, she just wanted to achieve more. She wanted to do more, and she just saw a ceiling in Dominican Republic. Yeah. I think my dad saw it too. and he was just like, I wanna seek more. And Puerto Rico just seemed like the choice because they didn't know nothing beyond that. Even Puerto Rico, it seemed so distant.
Yeah.
But they made it happen, and honestly, it worked out for the best. Their relationship in particular, like, it didn't last like super long, but regardless for what it was, like, it helped me a lot, especially to have the opportunities that I have these days.
Yeah.
Especially to be a creative, because like I couldn't even imagine like me growing up in that type of situation and being like, I want to be a writer. No, like I need to make money.
Yeah.
To like, you know, do whatever it is that I have to do, and like and really like have a life. But because of their sacrifice, like, I get to be a creative, and I always was like a very creative kid. But it was because I didn't have to experience those hardships that they had to go through.
And, you know, I'm asking just because I don't know, is, you know, you're born in Puerto Rico, so you get the U.S. citizenship.
Yeah.
For your parents, you know, do they have to do their like residency and like all the immigration stuff through Puerto Rican stuff, or is it through the larger U.S. law?
Well, they do it through Puerto Rico. So I don't know exactly when was the year. I know it took a long time. But my mom and my dad used to be, it was very old school traditional relationship, meaning like my mom would be at home and my dad would be working. When the relationship was getting like rocky, that was like around when I was like maybe 6 years old or 7 year old. My mom started to work. And the only thing that she could do at the time, because she could only pretty much work anything under the table. And at the time, what she did was clean people's houses. So she would clean everybody's houses to the point that she worked her way up to cleaning big bankers' houses in Puerto Rico and big politicians as well. And then she saved up enough money to invest in a car, get her tourism license, and become a taxi driver. Meanwhile, my dad got his license for repairing electronics, and he opened a shop of repairing like TVs, computers, all sorts of electronics, PlayStation, you name it. And so essentially, my mom and my dad, which at the time I didn't know this until later in my life, both my mom and my dad are entrepreneurs. But at the time, it was just like, we need to do whatever it takes to survive. You know?
They're just hustling.
Yeah, they're just hustling. And but essentially, doing those things is what eventually got them the actual residency and the citizenship. But even to get the citizenship, like, they had to like study and take tests in order to like actually get it. But they did that through Puerto Rico, I believe.
Yeah. You know, and that's never something that's even occurred to me. You know, people come, and you know, you hear about people coming to the U.S. as immigrants and having to like work hard and do the whole immigration thing and sort out what the hell it even means for them and their family and their situation. But to hear like someone doing it in Puerto Rico, you know, and because they do have citizenship and in the U.S. territory, and I don't think I've ever heard anything like that. That's something I didn't even know existed, which is pretty cool. So I do want to ask, like, how do you identify? You know, do you see yourself as like, you know, like, because your family is from the Dominican Republic, you're a U.S. citizen, you grew up in Puerto Rico, so, you know, this is my way of trying to frame it, but I'm trying to see what do you identify as?
So that's a very interesting question, because it's something that I struggle with a lot, especially growing up, because I was like, okay, in Puerto Rico, especially in Puerto Rico, you and back in that day, and I would say even now still, you don't really see racism. Like, that's not a thing. You see people, they could be white, they could be, you know, morenito, they could be black, however, you can be purple, and it don't matter. Like, people treat you the same. There's also not a classicism thing. It's not like if you make more money than me, we're not gonna hang out. Like people treat each other pretty the same. The only thing that for sure was, and you could feel it in the air back in that time, was there was like a battle amongst Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. For some reason, Puerto Ricans saw Dominicans at that point as lower than them. And that was like something that I felt that I was like, okay, then what am I? You know, am I Puerto Rican? Am I a Dominican? And now, like years later in my life, I'm 27 years old now, by the recording of this podcast at this moment. And I identify myself as a Puerto Rican because what I know and what I grew up on was Puerto Rican history, Puerto Rican lifestyle, all that stuff. I don't know that much history as I would love to know of Dominican because I didn't grow up on that. I don't even know the national anthem from there. I know the Puerto Rican one. Yeah. But I just see myself as a Puerto Rican with incredible privileges as an American. But I'm a Puerto Rican undercover as an American, essentially. That's how I really identify myself. And I just take advantage of all those opportunities because honestly, like I grew up, there's 3 major parties in Puerto Rico. In the U.S., there's the Republican and the Democratic. In Puerto Rico, there's El Partido Popular, Popular Party. There's the PNP, Partido Nuevo Progresista, New Progressive, whatever. And there's the Independentista, the Independent. The popular one, they want to remain a Commonwealth, which is a U.S. territory. The progressive one is more like we want to become a state. And the independent one wants to just be independent and be not under the rule of the USA. The reason USA is even in the picture of Puerto Rico was, just to give you a little history lesson, back in the day when we had like the natives, the Spaniards came to Puerto Rico, and the reason they got into Puerto Rico is because the women, they were a bomb, and the gold. And once they exploited all that, they did the same thing that they did in America, which is bring African slaves to do more work. And once they exploited all the gold and they killed most of the people there and whatever and mainly they killed people because of bacteria. And so once that happened, they pretty much had no reason to even colonize Puerto Rico because it's like, we already got what we want. We don't need this. So the U.S. was like, hey, we want it. So they took over basically on 1902. And the reason they took over is like they didn't care about the women. They did not care about the gold. What they care is because in Puerto Rico was in the place that Puerto Rico is located in the middle of the equator in the globe of the world, is perfect for them for military reasons. So they can attack different places from that place. Puerto Rico for the longest time, and for the longest time I mean like they had this problem to like 2006 or 7, something like that. They were still like military ships there practicing and like destroying the ecosystem because they were using it as like target practice place. But thankfully people got together and they actually like got them out. So now Puerto Rico is like a safe zone and they're not doing that stuff. But essentially that's the history, and that's the reason Puerto Rico became a territory. And they had the option in the beginning to become a state, but because people were so split of like, we want to be independent, no, we want to be a state, no, we want to be just a territory. It always remains like that, and no matter the fight at this point, I feel it's just gonna be the way it is. And instead of me joining that fight or joining a side, all I do is like, okay, what are the loopholes? What are the advantages? I'm gonna take advantage of this. And that's what I've been doing, and thankfully I've been having a pretty great career based on those things because I didn't get caught up in the politics. All I did was like, okay, this is the way it's gonna be. What can I do? Where's the fine print? What are the things I can do? What are the things I can't do? Cool. Let me take advantage of this.
And so I do want to talk about like what was your life like growing up in Puerto Rico? Your childhood. Do you have siblings? Like sort of like what was your relationship to school?
So in Puerto Rico, I grew up with 3 older sisters. My oldest is my mom's. My middle is my dad's. And the youngest is both.
Yeah.
And so I mainly grew up with the youngest. Because the oldest was there for a while, but then they moved her to the States. The middle, I basically saw her when I was very young and then when I was older. So for the longest time, we weren't even having a relationship. And then the youngest, she basically grew up with me. And I'm the youngest one, and I'm the only boy. And growing up there was very interesting because, I don't know, like, it was like looking back now, it was just like, it couldn't be any better, to be honest with you. At the time, it was like I was very confused. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, I'm in this household. All these people like to scream. Because that's another thing. Like Dominicans, in Spanish, I thought it was an easy language to learn because I grew up with it. It's my first language. But honestly, now it's like I can understand why people have trouble with Spanish because everywhere you go, Spanish is spoken differently. Yeah. Even if it's next to each other. In Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican people, and I do stand-up comedy as well, and I have a joke saying this, but Puerto Rico, like, the people there are very laid back. It's an island. People are there. They're in paradise. Even if they're struggling, bro, you're in paradise. Yeah. Like, you cannot stress about being around a beach, And so people are very laid back, very like, ¿qué pasó? What's up? Very like that. And Dominicans are very like, they feel like they're yelling at you. I don't want to even do an impression here because I don't want to like people to like bleed out of their ears. Yeah, that's but like they basically are almost screaming at you, but it's like they're very passionate people. Got it. And they talk like that. And my whole family, especially my mom, she will talk like that. And that will stress me out because I'm like, I just want things to be chill, you know? I got used to like the Puerto Rican lifestyle. And growing up, I grew up in a really bad neighborhood, especially I grew up in the 90s mainly. And in the 90s, I feel like everywhere in the world, or at least the way it was portrayed in the media, it looked like it was chaos everywhere. Because in LA, they had the riots, and they had the Rodney King thing. In Puerto Rico, it was like the gunshots every day. You turn on the news and there's like 70 murders, and it was like, it was crazy because it was like in all those places, Colombia, Mexico, and all these places, you never heard too many stories because the news from those places didn't really get to Puerto Rico. But the news that you will get in Puerto Rico was that Puerto Rico is the most dangerous place in the entire Latin America hemisphere. And I was just like, how is that even possible? Yeah. If we're so small, it shouldn't be. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, learning in my life and throughout the years, I learned that also that's one tactic that news media uses is scare tactics, and they like to jack up numbers and do all that.
I grew up from Chicago, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, and at the time it didn't make sense to me. I was just like, what? And the thing about it is that you will believe it because outside all you hear was gunshots. And like literally every night I could hear gunshots. If I didn't hear gunshots, it was rare. And I would be like, what's going on?
That's suspicious.
Yeah. Literally, like, it got to the point, like, at the beginning, for the longest time, when you hear gunshots, you get to the floor. But it got to the point that it was so normal that it was just like, you keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. It's like, if you got hit, bro, like, that was your day. And that was it. And I have friends that literally, like, they were like, oh, my window, like, it's broken because a gun, there's a bullet in my living room now. And that was like a normal thing. So it was weird, man, because like you accepted certain things as normal, even though they weren't. But it was just like that was your daily life. And either you accept it or you really don't have another choice because you're kind of stuck there. It wasn't like, oh, I can just move out here. And the only chances that I had to like move, that thankfully, because of my mom having like 14 brothers and sisters, a lot of them emigrated to different places. And one of my aunties lived in New York. So when I was like 8 years old, I got the chance to go to New York. And when I went there, you know, I had the opportunity. Like my mom presented to me the opportunity, like if you wanna live here, like you can, and you just live with her and whatever. And honestly, just me being there and experiencing the winter there, I was just like, I don't want to live here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so used to the Caribbean weather, and yeah, I just can't do it. Like, I don't care. Like, it just, and it didn't seem fun either. It just like all the buildings and everything. It's like, all right, cool. Like the only fun thing for me at the time about New York was the fact that I saw chimneys. That was it. Because you know, every time you hear about Santa Claus and whatever, he goes in a chimney. Yeah. I'm like, Puerto Rico has no chimneys. Like, that doesn't exist. So when I went to New York and saw chimneys for the first time, I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. They do exist.
Yeah, no, I remember thinking that too. Because you would see Santa coming through fireplace. And I'm like, we don't have a fireplace. Yeah. But when I see a fireplace, I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, it's just from what you see on TV that you're just like, yeah, that's how it is. That's how the stories have been told to you.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't really speak to your real life experience, when you see it in person, you're like, huh, whoa, like, that's cool.
But yeah, growing up was very weird. And I feel like, honestly, like, especially how things played out, I had to grow up that way. Because, like, my dad, I grew up in an abusive household. Like, my dad didn't drink or smoke or none of that. Like, my family in general are not a family of like vices. If anything, I'm the one with the most vices out of my entire family, because they legit just had a beer and that's it. Like they're not alcoholics and all that. And since I grew up in like an abusive household with my dad specifically, like I looked for the opposite. I was like, there has to be something better than this, you know? Like, it can't be just drama and stuff. So I looked up, thankfully my dad was like very up with technology. So we had, at a young age, I had Dish Network, which was like a satellite provider. So my dad was watching like The Sopranos and Sex and the City and stuff like that late at night. And I used to sleep with my parents when I was young. And he will sleep with the TV on. And that's how I developed kind of insomnia and I couldn't sleep. So I will watch whatever was on TV because I couldn't change the channel or anything or turn it off. So stand-up comedy will come next. And that's when I started seeing like people like George Lopez and Dave Chappelle and Richard Pryor and Joe Leguizamo. And I started seeing these people like perform and just making people smile. Like telling jokes. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I really want to do that. Like, that seems like fun. But that seemed like such a distant dream, especially at the time, because in Puerto Rico, there was like, and even still up to this day, and we're in 2019 right now, there's not really a spot in Puerto Rico for you to like go and do stand-up. They develop like little street spots now, but there's not like a club or something like that. So it just seems like a distant dream. It seemed like something I would do for sure, but it will take me years to even get there. To even perform once. And so I was like, okay, what can I do in order for me to like be creative or like do something, I don't know, different? So I think how I developed or started really in writing was in 5th grade. And that's when I started like, 'cause in 4th grade, like finishing 4th grade is when I started having crushes, like many crushes on girls. And on 5th grade was when I was starting to like really let it out. I would write poems to girls, and I would read them in class and stuff. That's and funny. Like cry and like like a wuss. And I would do all that, and that's how I started writing. But like, but I was getting rejected a lot, so that kind of like didn't really fulfill me to like keep writing. Because I was getting rejected. But I took a theater class in 5th grade. And that teacher made us write a lot. Like, if you see our notebook, it's just filled from beginning to end. So it was like forced upon you to write. And I wrote 3 plays that year.
Cool.
And it was my first time writing. And I was writing a lot of, especially in plays, I was writing a lot of dramas. A lot of dramas with like little funny moments here and there, but it was mainly dramas, just because I had so much in my system that I had to like let out, and that's how I started. And I started writing, I started directing, acting, and casting. when I was in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. But that's how I started developing my talents, because like nobody in my family really does that. It was just like a thing I started doing and wanted to do. So thankfully I took that class and it helped me at least get started.
Yeah. And did your parents, like, what were their reaction to that? You know, did they go see the plays you wrote, or?
Barely. My dad never. My mom, I think saw, especially that year, maybe once.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't a big fan because, you know, when you're a kid, there's only so much inspiration you can get. So the things that you write, at least for me, you know, at the time, other people will see it as Shakespeare, but for people in your internal circle, they will go like, "Why are you putting my business out there?" Yeah. So my mom was not having fun because every time I was just like, you know, I was putting a family situation out there, but I was disguising it as this magical moment in the play, but it was something that legit happened, you know. And yeah, so for my mom, it wasn't super fun to necessarily see those dramatic plays.
Yeah, it's crazy that you remember that too. Because just like in 5th grade, being like, yeah, they're not really into it. Like,
yeah, man. Because like when you're so in tune with what you're doing, you can sense everything. Yeah. And I could tell. Like my mom, whatever she felt directly identified, or a situation where she's like connected with, she is not having it. She's like, make fun of you, make fun of other people, but don't bring me at all.
Yeah, keep my name out your mouth.
I know. And it's like, I can't help it because my mom is like one of the biggest inspirations of like everything I do. Even on comedy, like I make fun of her and like how I grew up with her and all that stuff. And but yeah, I just can't help it. It's just like you write what you know most of the time.
Oh, for sure.
And or at least the things that connects with people is what you know.
Yeah, because it's the truth, you know.
And that's the most that I know is that woman right there.
Yeah. And did you continue that into high school? The writing, the creativity?
So after that class, I kind of got overwhelmed because like that teacher really cracked the whip. You know, that's the reason I pulled 3 plays. Some people ask me like, wow, whoa, you wrote 3 plays off the gate? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but in a way it wasn't because I wanted to. Like I wanted to, but no. I wanted to, but not necessarily wanted to like put 3 plays out. It was just that teacher challenged me, and I really take serious challenges. And it just got so to the point, it was so much that I had to take a year off. And later in 6th grade, I didn't do anything creative. I just focused on sports more. Yeah. And just developing that part of my life. And then in 7th grade, I got back into theater and doing that. And I wrote a couple more plays. I wrote 2, I believe. And I wrote a bunch of sketches that we performed in class. And then at the time, I was hooked on a show called Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Wayne Brady and Drew Carey and a bunch of other people. And I was just hooked watching that show because I'd never seen improv comedy in my life. And that was the first exposure I had watching that show. And I was just like, every time I watched that show, I would watch that show like almost every night. Every time it would come up, I would see it. And I will go to the class and I will go like, I want to do this. I want to play this game that is on TV. And like, man, thank God for that teacher. Shout out to Lenny Savera. She is the best because she legit like, she basically let me like co-teach the class with her. Legit, because she just saw that I was just a different kid. Yeah. And that I just had like such a weird and different enthusiasm when it came to theater. And she just saw that I just lit up. And she will like allow me to do things that normal teachers wouldn't allow students to do. Yeah. And I will bring all these ideas, all these games, all these things to class, and we will do every single one of them. So yeah, and then after that, I just kept doing plays. Then I realized like I really have to quit sports because at that point I wasn't really making the team. I was like making either the bench or like the second team, and not really playing. And I just realized like, okay, my forte is really like this creative acting, writing stuff. So let me focus more on that. And let me just keep pursuing that. And I went to, when I was in 8th grade, and I finished 8th grade, so transitioning into high school. That same teacher, she taught me for 2 years, 7th and 8th. She told me, hey, you should audition for this acting team. It's called Oratoria. And it's basically like a team where they're a team where they compete individually. And basically all you have, you have no makeup, no nothing. All you have is a chair. And you have to do, depending on what category you are, there's like drama, there's original, there's poetry, there's improvisation, and there's one more that in oratoria, that was more like informative. Like you give more speeches, formal speeches for that, and you compete. And this is like a, island level competition. And I believe they do it in the States. I think it's called forensics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we actually have forensics, but later. But first it just was oratoria, so it was in Spanish. And she told me to audition. And I auditioned for the team, and she wasn't like the leader of that team, but she was part of it.
Yeah.
And I auditioned, and my audition, like the script that I picked wasn't the best, but my improvisation was pretty good. And regardless, I didn't make the team. And I was like, cool, whatever. Like I didn't make it. And I just kept moving on with my life. And at that time, I got casted on a play where I had to play a 80-year-old, widow. That's basically that in the monologue, because it was a monologue, like a long monologue. You discover that where he's talking, because in the play you're like in front of people, but you're in your head, and the character plays, he's not in front of people. He's basically in a cemetery. Yeah. And you don't discover he's in a cemetery until much later in the monologue. Yeah. And you discover that the people he's visiting in the cemetery is both his wife and his son. And he feels devastated, because at first he's just telling stories, like great stories that he had with them, funny moments, stuff like that. It was such I love doing that character, man. And but at the very end, you discover that this dude is like torn. Like this dude lost not only his wife, so he's a widow, but his son. Yeah. And there's not even a phrase to say, when your parents die, they call you an orphan. There's a line in the monologue saying, when your parents die, because he lost his parents, they call you an orphan. When you lose your wife, they call you a widow. When you lose your kid, that doesn't even have a name, because that's unnatural. That's not supposed to happen. And this dude is just torn apart. So I did that play, and because I had such a young face, because I was just a freshman in high school, they had to put like almost 3 hours of makeup on me every time I was going to perform that. God. And doing that performance, the director dude that passed on me originally, he didn't even see the play itself, but he was seeing the practices of it, the rehearsals. Yeah. And he went to me at one of the rehearsals, and he said, Steve, I think I made a mistake. You are dope, and I would like you to be part of the team. And legit, like, I was about to, in my head, go say, fuck you. I don't know if I can curse, but I'm sorry. Yeah, you can. Okay, I was going to say, fuck you, bro. But legit, at that moment, before I could say anything, he said, but don't give me an answer today. Think about it for a week, and then let me know. If we wouldn't have said that, I would have said, fuck you, bro. Yeah. Like, you passed on me. That's on you. And but anyway, a week later, I thought about it. I joined the team. That year, I won. I think it was 3rd overall. And you compete against like 27 of the top actors in every school, island level. And I got third place that year. The next year, I became captain. And I ended up being captain of that team for the rest of my high school life. I ended up doing more plays in school. I basically did every lead that there was. I was there. It was like I did Anne Frank, and I played Anne Frank. Like legit, it was me in drag playing Anne Frank.
And like, what did the other kids think of you? You know, were you like the star? Like,
yeah, they will see me as like, yo, this is the actor. Like,
yeah.
Steve's the actor. Like, whenever they would think of acting, it was like I was the definition. And it wasn't like he's the actor of that great. It was like, no, he's the actor.
Yeah.
And it was like, to me, just I felt a lot of pride in that because I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I worked very hard to like get to this point.
And your parents, how were they feeling about it?
They was thinking, yo, what are you doing? Like, what is this silly thing you're doing? You know, like they just couldn't understand it. And I just saw all this as like training ground because I knew what was my big goal. And my big goal was like, I want to do movies. I was like, that's my North Star. Yeah. Like, I'm focused on like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to get there because I know I'm going to be handsomely rewarded once I get there. And I can do all this free work right now, but once I get there, I'm going to be making the big bucks. And then all the sacrifice, all the things that my parents went through, like, it's gonna be worth it. And something that's very funny, and I should say it before I keep moving on in my story, but it's like my name, like, I'm Steve Dez. My real name is Steven Valdez. I just shorten it, Steve Dez. The reason my name is Steven is because my dad, when I was born, wanted me to be called Miguel, which is my dad's name.
Yeah, classic.
My mom wanted for me to be Steven because of Steven Seagal was the biggest star at that time when I was born. So my name is Steven Miguel. You know, my middle name is Miguel. So both are happy. So funny enough, my mom gave me that name. I'm pursuing that same career, and she doesn't want me to do it. You know, it's so cliche, so funny, but literally, like, she was just like, she's like, when are you gonna stop doing this? Basically, she was just waiting for me to like crumble at some point and go like, okay, this is not worth it, or for me to like hit my face so hard to go like, okay, I'll get a regular job, you know. But it was just like, I told her like head on, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm pursuing, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I know I'm gonna succeed at, and I'm going to excel at, and at the end, every complaint, everything's gonna be worth it. I just know, because if you're doing something you enjoy doing and you're getting paid for it, like, there's no other definition of happiness for me.
Yeah, that's real.
Like, and I seen my parents struggle and work hard, like like breaking back work and things that they don't really want to do. And seeing that, it gave me the chance to go like, I'd never want to do that. Yeah. I want to completely pursue things that I'm passionate about. And if I'm not passionate about something one day, I'll drop it and move on things that I'm passionate about. And that's how I really live my life. And that's how I understood that I'm rich. And I was already rich since I was a kid. Thinking that I was poor, I had a poor mindset. I realized that as long as you're pursuing the things and you have the ability to do the things that you're passionate about, you're rich forever. Yeah. And I thankfully have been so blessed that I've been doing that for a long period of time. Yeah. Because if I'm passionate about something, even stand-up, for example, I knew I wanted to do that. I really wanted to do that, but it took me a long time for me to actually be able to do that. It took me until I was 17 years old, and I went to Florida. I was there in my big sister's house in West Palm Beach, and I pretended that I was 18, but I was 17 at the time. Yeah. In order for me to get a spot. And I did it. And even up to this day, I don't know if people were laughing at my jokes or they were laughing at the fact that I barely spoke English. But regardless...
a laugh's a laugh.
A laugh's a laugh. Yeah. And I took it like that was one of the best nights of my entire life, because I got to accomplish a dream that I had since I was 6, you know? And as long as I'm doing things like that, I'm checking boxes of like, oh, I really want to do that. Like, because I feel on fire about that idea, then I feel like I'm winning at life, regardless of whatever, like regardless of bank account or what people think of on the outside or whatever, like whatever is making me feel happy and I'm achieving on, like I don't need validation from nobody else, because that was something I was struggling with a lot, and maybe some of the listeners might be struggling with, is like you're constantly seeking validation for some type of reason. Like at one point I had to evaluate myself and go like, why am I really pursuing this? I want to be in a movie and I want to be on this acting thing.
Yeah.
And I realized that a lot of it was because of ego, and a lot of it was because of me being young and having all these plays and having all these important defining moments in my life, or that I set up as defining moments in my life, and I didn't have my parents or someone that I really loved be there. Like I have friends and family of friends and all those people watching me, but I didn't have my mom watching me, you know, because she was working.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like my sister watching me because she's doing, you know, her life.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was just constantly seeking validation. I was like, if I'm in a movie, they're definitely going to see that, you know, and they have to, because they're going to see me everywhere. They're going to see me on the trailer, they're going to see me on the poster. And I was just doing this thing to show off and be like, yeah. But then I realized that that's not what life's about.
No.
And the reason I love doing what I do is because I want to do my own stuff. I want to do my own productions. I want to do my own things that I write. I want to see them come to life, you know? And that's the reason I pursue the things that I pursue. And I feel writing, specifically writing, is the basis of everything that I've done. I mean, stand-up, you cannot get there with no jokes.
Yeah.
You know, plays, you need a script. You know, even the TV shows you watch, they need a script.
Yeah.
Writing is such an important piece, and I feel, especially the school system, like it kills a lot of writers, man. It kills a lot of it makes you not want to write, because you write so much BS of things, you know, history things and things that you don't really care about. But if you were writing about your dreams or things that you really want to pursue or whatever, everybody will be a writer. Everybody will be writing books about all sorts of things. But I feel like the school system kind of kills two big things and very important things in your life, or three things in your life. I feel the school system these days kills about you: your ability to write, your ability to read, and your ability to learn. Because writing is so mega important for you to like put out your dreams, put out the things that you want, and you don't do it because of all the writing you'd have to do in school. You go like, that sounds like a chore. Reading, they make you read all sorts of things that you don't want to read about. Meanwhile, it took me a long time for me to discover books that I genuinely want to read about, and now I love reading. And then learning, because they give you so much BS information that you really don't need in your life and you're not going to use ever. And then it kills your spirit to learn, because it's like, I don't want to learn more BS. You know? Meanwhile, this is the important age of like, whatever you need, you're literally a YouTube or a Google away of finding the answer for it, and most people just use it for dumb stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm like working with a program right now where, you know, it's kids and writing, and my whole like sort of view of it is, let's not make it homework. Let's make it that the writing is something that they create, that they express, that they can take outside of school. So you're right. So you don't see writing just as like papers you have to turn in. Yeah. And you can see writing as a means of expression, as art, because I think, you know, us as writers, that comes very natural to us, but you're right. Some people don't even get that chance.
Yeah. Writing is so important, and I'm rediscovering my passion for writing, especially this year, because that's something that especially I want you guys to really have this drill in your head. Everything that you write comes to life. What I just said is so freaking important, because if you're a writer and you write a script, you're writing that script because you want to see that script come to life. And most times, especially if you're a relentless writer and you want to have your vision out there, whether it's through a network or through another person or through yourself, and you go like, I'm going to self-fund it and I'm going to do it. You want that thing to come to life. I can tell you that the majority, if not all, at this point, of goals that I've written down have came true. And it's insane. But if I don't write something down, especially my day, like that's something that I'm doing more now. I write things that I want to accomplish in my day, and 9 times out of 10, I do accomplish them because I wrote them down. If I don't have things written down, then I feel like aimless in life. It's like, what am I doing today? I have no clue, no idea. But even as simple as writing 3 things that you want to accomplish that day, like that gives you so much perspective in life, and it helps you so much for you to accomplish. And one thing that, especially for anybody that's like that wants to write but hasn't started writing yet, one thing that helped me a lot was this book called The Artist's Way. And in that book, they do something called morning journals. And basically what it is that when you wake up in the morning, like before you look at your phone and all that, grab a book and do free writing for like 3 full pages or however long you want. But you just do that and don't censor yourself. Like legit, you just like pick a pen or pick a pencil, whatever you like to write, or even in a computer if you like doing that, and just write whatever is in your brain. Whether it was a dream, whether it was a song, don't limit yourself, don't censor yourself, just write nonstop. Even if at one point it becomes gibberish, just do that. But the repetition and repetition and repetition of that, it will help you like have more creative ideas, flow way more better, and most importantly, it will not let you censor yourself in whatever writing you want to do. But I feel like writing is so important, and I feel like it's the basis of everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. See, that's why I like this podcast, because I learn new things every time. Yeah, I'm going to listen back to that. I think everyone else should too, because I think, that's like a good way to look at it. Yeah, it's a simple idea, but yeah, I like it. So did you leave Puerto Rico right after high school? Like, when did you leave Puerto Rico?
So right out of high school, I pretty much hit a ceiling in Puerto Rico. And it was that I did so many plays, so many things. I started even doing some local TV shows in Puerto Rico. And I met with a lot of important people in Puerto Rico when it comes to like the acting world. And I was just asking them about their perspective on their lives.
Yeah.
And I had this one conversation with a very famous actor in Puerto Rico. He might not be known out here, but in Puerto Rico he's very known. His name is Jorge Castro. And he's been like on every TV network in Puerto Rico. He's been in so many plays. He's probably on a play or 2 or 3 right now. Yeah. But this dude works. And essentially I had a conversation with him because one of my teachers had a relationship with him. So she brought him there. And I got to sit down with him because, I got presented like, yo, he's our top actor and whatever. And I asked him, I'm like, yo, this is my senior year. And before this year, I was very sure of what I was going to do, which was always, I'm going to leave and I'm going to the States. But in senior year, the world and everybody just puts you this amount of pressure for you to like make a decision and make it fast. You don't have that much time. You only have this year to like make the decision of your life, what you're gonna do. And I just had this crazy overwhelming pressure, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was like, well, I can stay here, and first I don't have to pay rent, and I got a job, and I don't have to take a student loan. There were so many pros for me to stay. But at the same time, I was just like, if I'm here, I never went out. I never tried to do it by myself. I never, there were so many what ifs. So I asked him in particular, I'm like, what's your life like? Because like from the outside, it looks cool. It looks like something fun. It's cool. And he told me like straight up, I'm like, for him to live, he has to be in 3 places at the same time. Yeah. That's 3 different scripts. That's 3 shows he's running around up and down. Sometimes he has 2 shows in one day, 2 different shows, entirely different shows. Wow. And to me, that did not sound like fun. To me, that sounded like work.
Yeah.
Because it's not like if one day you don't want to work, it's not like you have that option. It's like, no, you have to do this because the play doesn't run without you. That convinced me entirely. I was like, I don't want that. Because now the offers I'm getting are pretty. Doesn't mean like it's going to be like this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just because I'm hot right now here and I'm young and all that stuff. But I'm not going to be young all the time. I'm not going to have the same drive I have right now. So I might as well take this energy I have and take my ball to the States and see what's up. Nobody's waiting for me there. Nothing. You know, I'm not a trust fund kid.
Yeah.
I have nothing. I legit I'm building everything from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say, well, if my parents did it, so can I. So
true, very true.
Yeah.
You know, we forget that all the work that was built to even get us where we are.
Yeah.
So that's why it's already within us to like do more and do that work.
So that's the same way I was thinking. I was just like, well, in Puerto Rico, I'm always going to have a ceiling. Always going to have a ceiling. But in the States, I can blow the roof out of the place. Or I may not. Who knows? Like, I have no idea. Yeah. But I would like to take that gamble. And I decided I'm leaving. Like, I'm taking off. And legit, I graduated. Not only that, this is so funny, but like my graduation, this is how valuable I was to my school. In my graduation, kid you not, I had the speech of the class. I did an intro play. I coordinated a video. And I essentially produced my graduation. And I'm a student.
Yeah.
And I legit had my senior trip. We had we raised money and whatever to have a senior trip and went to Disney and whatever. And after that, and I finished my finals, I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I just take my diploma. I'm out of here. But legit, the teachers, like, all huddled me up in like a classroom, going like, Steve, we need you to do all of this. And I was like, what? Yeah, we need you to do all this. And I'm like, why? Because you're the only person that can do this.
God.
And I was like, oh my God, it's true. Like, it's true. Like, legit, like, the only person I graduated with 93 students. And the only person in the entire class that knew every single person was me. Because everybody had cliques. Everybody had, like, their own groups. And I was the only person that's like, I'm going to hang out with everybody. Yeah. Why if I'm here, I can't hang out there? Yeah. Like, that makes no sense to me. So I became friends with everybody, and that's the reason why I got picked for that job. And I did that, but literally 3 days after I graduated, I left. So I didn't even stay that long. I legit had like a very mini goodbye party type of thing that like 4 friends showed up out of like 6 or 7 I invited. And I said, this is it. Like, I'm out. Like, I'm not coming back.
What did your parents think?
My mom was happy. Yeah, my mom always, I think like that was like low key my mom's dream. Yeah. Like, my mom wanted us to like grow up there to have a better lifestyle and then kick us to the States to have even better success. Yeah. Like, I feel like really that's what my mom low key was doing, because I saw her do that for my big sister, and she did that to my young sister, and then she did it with me. So, because she wasn't just like kicking us out there and like leaving us to dry. Like, she was helping us out to like get started. Yeah. But she was like, from now on, you're grown up. You're gonna do your taxes. You're gonna do this. Like, you're gonna be independent. And honestly, that's one of the best things that my mom could ever do for me, because I became independent from the get-go, whether I wanted it or not. Like, it was just like, this is my life now. I'm a grown up. I gotta think for myself, and I gotta do things on my own, and I gotta make my own decisions, and I can't have someone validate me and whatnot. Yeah.
And so where did you go? What did you do there?
So I first went to West Palm Beach, Florida. That's where my big sister lived, and crashed on her couch for a while. Okay. Until I get my place and stuff settled. Because I was moving to Gainesville, which is north of Orlando, like about an hour and 45 minutes from Orlando. A small town there in Gainesville, nothing but college, Gator country. Okay. UF people out there, University of Florida. Yeah. So I went to a community college called Santa Fe College. Okay. And I went there and I started in the theater program. So I was taking a bunch of classes from like noon that was one of the beauties of college. I was like, wait, I can start my class at noon.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is the best.
Freshman year, all my classes started at 1. Like,
my class started like my first class was at noon, and I didn't finish till like 8:30.
Yeah.
But then it got crazier because at first it was just that, but then when I actually started getting jobs, because at first I was getting rejected left and right. So my first job was working at a restaurant called Genghis Grill, Mongolian stir fry.
Shout out to them.
And that's the only job that I quit. I like on the spot. Like I went on a Sunday, said "fuck you guys." Shout out to them. And I worked on Regal Cinemas movie theater. So it was insane. I was working at one point in the morning. This is my schedule, legit. I was killing myself. So in the morning, I will work the early shift at the restaurant, and I will get out, go to school, be a full-time student, get out like at freaking 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
To go to Regal Cinemas and work the night shift till like 3 in the morning. And then after that, get like a burger, hit the gym, work on YouTube videos for like an hour or two. Because that's what I really wanted to be doing.
Yeah, what were you doing with that?
With the YouTube videos?
Yeah.
I was making like comedy skits and whatever, and I was starting to get paid off YouTube. Like I got like my first $100 check. So I was like, oh my God, if I can make this my living, that would be the best.
Yeah.
So I was working on that like very late at night. Then I would get like 2 hours of sleep and do it all over again. Oh. And I was doing that like almost every day.
Yeah. So you're in Florida. You're in school learning, about theater and stuff, doing YouTube, just, to feed your creative outlet.
Yeah.
What were you aiming for? What was the plan? Like, what did you know sort of what you were going to do, where you were going?
Yeah. So my plan at that time was, okay, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be in college. I'm going to graduate. Then I'm going to work 1 year off college, just work my ass off, just get as many jobs as I can and save a ton of money so I can save up and move to California. That was the goal. Yeah. That was the plan. But my plan changed.
Yeah.
Not because of me. It was because of life.
Yeah.
And so at one point, I was like, I discovered that there was a way for me to get an acting scholarship. I had to audition for it during the audition time. Yeah. But I was just talking to all these students, and I was like, oh, how much you pay? And, like, asking all these questions. And they're like, oh, I'm on a scholarship. I'm like, what? So I was like, I'm trying to find out about this scholarship. I'm like, yo, it's money, Yeah. And I'm taking all these loans, and I'm an out-of-state student. That's a whole other thing, being from Puerto Rico. Essentially, I found out about the scholarship. I auditioned for it. I found out about... So this is the story. So I was in an acting class, and we do something called character exploration, which is like you do a lot of exercises like walking around and doing all these body movements to try to get into the character that you're going to portray next. And at the time, I picked this character named Joey, and it was from a play or monologue called Dreaming in Autistic Colors. And it's like a kid that's autistic. But so I was just having a tough time, and I literally stopped. Everybody was like doing their thing, and I stopped in the middle of it and just went straight to the teacher and said, listen, I'm really trying. I'm trying my best. I'm being honest, but I don't think I can do this character right now. And is there a way that you can like help me get another one? And he's like, yeah, do you have time like between this and your next one? I was like, yeah, I have an hour in between. So he's like, oh, you just come to my office and I'll help you. And I went to his office, and he basically said, oh, just sit down. I'll look something for you. And he like brought all these piles of scripts. But I am kind of ADD. I can't just like sit down and wait for someone. I have to like do something. So I was like standing up and like looking around, and I saw like a bunch of posters like around his office. And like one of the posters that I saw, it said, AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, Jason Derulo graduated, blah, 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 like a bunch of stuff. And I was just like, hey, what's that? He said, oh, that's AMDA, American Musical and Dramatic Academy, blah, blah, it's in New York, it's in LA, blah, blah, give me the info. And I was like, oh, cool, what is it like? He said, oh, it's a conservatory, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, and like, what type of classes do? Oh, give me the gist.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, and like, do you think someone like me should even like try to audition? And he said like, oh yeah, I think that you should, because like you're like one of my high achieving students. Like you always want to do more. I mean, you're even here like right now, spending free time that you have and like doing all this stuff. And I said, cool, I'll look up. And I also I don't like on a whim go like, oh, let me do it. Like I also do research. So I looked online that if it was accredited, if like it was like a legit school, it's not like a scam. And hilariously enough, I find the only two things that I found online was like, oh, this school is great, it's awesome, it's amazing, the best thing in my life, or this school is a scam. It should be called Scamda.
Yeah, I've heard that name before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Whatever. What do I lose? $50 on the application fee and a day of auditioning. Let me do it. So I send the application, whatever, the $50, and I sign up for the audition in Orlando. Oh my God, what a trip! So when I went to the audition thing, I barely slept.
Yeah.
I'm hungover. I just got a ticket.
Yeah.
I drank McDonald's, or we'll have McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then I'm in the bathroom throwing up. I'm like, today's not my day.
Yeah.
Today's going to be the worst audition of my entire life. I already paid $50. I already drove all the way here. Whatever. I'm just going to do whatever I have to do. So I go to the room and I do my thing. And I do 2 contrasting monologues. And the lady, because it was only just one lady evaluating me, she like legit for 20 minutes straight just complimented me. He was like, oh my God, you remind me of this writer. You remind me of John Leguizamo. You remind me of like just giving me like all this stuff. And I just thought it was normal. I just thought it was like something that she does with everybody. But then I was noticing, because I was like one of the first people in, but then I was noticing with other people, they were in and out like within 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, this is not normal. And then 5 weeks later, I find out I got the scholarship and the whole deal and which place I want to go. I'm just like, fuck New York. I'm going to LA. That's my goal. And I talk things with my mom because, I got a scholarship, but it's not like, hey, we're going to pay everything for you. Like, there's still costs that need to be covered. And realistically, because of the timeline, because it was literally, I was applying I knew in April, and I will start in October. So within those months, yes, I could work and get money, but at the same time, it's not gonna cover everything. Like in the entire ride. And I was just gonna, and I only applied for the studio program, which is 2 years, so it's shorter than the normal BA, whatever. And so I talked to things with my mom. My mom agreed with me. We met somewhere in the middle. And and I was officially gonna make the move to LA. But that's initially what got me out here. And then what got me out here way before what I was thinking. Yeah. Because I was still like, that was like a year and a half to 2 years before I originally had planned.
So you're in LA in school in this program. How's LA treating you? How did you adjust? Was it like not only coming from Puerto Rico, but also coming from Florida? Like I'm sure you were able to sort of manage the culture change between Florida and Puerto Rico, but is LA like a whole different story?
So with LA, first of all, the first night I arrived, I remember first I was pissed off. Because originally, my plans constantly keep changing. That's why I'm not married to things anymore. Because it's just like, you can plan for a certain thing, you can get there, but it doesn't necessarily mean how you wanted to get there, So originally, I was going to drive from Florida all the way to California. Yeah. And that would have been like a really cool trip. Like in my head, I was planning like, it's going to be a cool trip, We're going to road trip across the country. Like, it's going to be fun. But my car wasn't ready because they were still fixing it because a dude hit me and whatever. And last minute, my sister booked my trip, but she booked it in the worst place possible. Because originally, like, I fly out of Orlando. Yeah. But this time, she booked it off of Jacksonville because she was saying, oh, it's less time driving. Because in Gainesville, you're like right in the middle, basically. Okay. And she booked out of Jacksonville. Ended up missing my fucking plane. Sorry for cursing again. And I ended up getting to LA basically at 2 in the friggin' morning.
Mm-hmm.
On basically the day that I had to move in to my dorm.
Yeah.
And so I booked a hotel right across from where I was staying, so it was fairly close, so I can just like move very easily. And I couldn't sleep. Like I was just like, oh my god, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I remember like getting here, like seeing Hollywood Boulevard, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This looks dirty. Like I was like, oh, this does not look like on TV.
Yeah, I have family coming in who want to go there. I'm like, no, you don't.
But I couldn't sleep, man. And I was like, I was staying like there in Yucca Street and Vine. Yeah. And I was walking around just like amazed. Just like, I'm here. Like, I'm here. Like, I couldn't believe that I was here. Like, all these years, all this time. I remember as a kid even telling my mom, I'm going to live in LA. She's like, what are you talking about? You haven't even been there. And yeah, I was just amazed. I was just like, I can't, like, I'm here. Like, it's only for me to fuck it up. Like it's time for like this is my time, and I was just amazed and surprised. And the first interaction that I had with a person in LA, besides the person that drove me, was this homeless dude on the street. Maybe he was homeless, maybe he wasn't, but he was like, "Bro, you want some weed?" And I say, "I'm good, but you know, maybe later I'll hit you up or something."
I mean, that's very LA.
Super LA, but I was like, oh my god, he really offered to you in the streets, because it's still like, you know, in Florida was different. It was a different thing back in the day.
Such a different culture.
Yeah.
So how many years have you been in LA, and what have you been up to in that time?
So I've been in LA for about 8 years now. It's gonna really be 8 years in October. Yeah. October 11 of 2011 is when I moved here. So technically 7.5 years now, but in October it's going to be 8 years. And that was the other question.
And what have you been up to in that time? Yeah.
What am I been up to? So I dropped out. Let me see if I can summarize all those years quickly. So I dropped out of SCAMDA. I entered 2011. I dropped out 2012, like February, because I said, yeah, school's not for me. And I could probably do better on my own. Yeah. So I got a very small apartment in Westlake MacArthur Park area, an area where a lot of people were claiming to be dangerous. But from where I come from, I'm like, Jesus, dangerous.
That's hilarious.
Dangerous doesn't scare me at all. Yeah. If I don't hear gunshots every night, I'm fine, bro. That's like, funny. This is Disneyland. Yeah. So I lived there. It was really cool, fine with me. I loved the place. And I just focused on acting that year. Just fully acting, saying like, I'm just going to make my income of acting. Yeah. It took me a while. I became SAG before the merger. So I joined AFTRA. There was like a merger between AFTRA and SAG. Oh, yeah, SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. AFTRA is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And at the time, SAG still has the same policy as today, which is you need the vouchers to get in, and then you need the money to get in. And AFTRA has the policy that anybody can join as long as you have $1,600. That's all I had in my bank account at the time. Literally paid for it. Became SAG the next day because of the merger happened. And then just focused on acting. Booked a little series afterwards that paid me a couple $1,000. Thank God, because at the time I was just working for free. Yeah. And months later, I booked like Walmart commercials. And to end that year, I won a game show on NBC called Take It All, and I won $25,000. So nice. That year was like, whoa, like, wow.
Yeah, that's not a bad year.
Yeah, I'm like, if this is how it's starting, I can't even imagine.
People are screaming at you right now. I hope you know that.
Oh, wait till you hear what's coming next.
Okay, it evens out.
So, yeah, it definitely evens out. Yeah. So, of course, all that success, you know, you got to hit a plateau. You got to hit a ceiling. And things are going to happen to bring you back to life. And first, one of my bestest friends in the world graduated with me in high school, 20 years old, one of the nicest persons I ever met in my entire life. Super Christian dude. Got murdered at 20 years old, working at a Boost Mobile by someone that he used to give rides to. See, it's crazy how that messed me up for life, because I was just like, how can that happen to such an incredible person, you know? So I was mad at God. I was mad at many things. And then later that year, my mom got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So that messed me up even more. I started pursuing more like improv and comedy because I was trying to find laughter and beyond like all this bad stuff happening to me. And in 2014, I went to Second City. I went to Groundlings and I went to UCB to like learn more skills and writing and all that stuff. And then in 2000, when was it? 2014. Yeah, 2014 on Super Bowl night, February 2nd. I'm coming out of a comedy club. I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, and I was on my way to Pasadena. And on the opposite, this was like a midnight almost, the opposite side of the freeway. So I was heading north, and they were heading south, but on the north freeway lane. So on my way, on the opposite side, lights off.
Oh God!
Like a 65 to 80 miles an hour hits me. This drunk driver that stole a car, and I basically almost died.
Yeah.
I went unconscious for a while. Woke up, couldn't walk, all bloody. And that changed my life a lot. And then to top that off, to put the cherry on top of the cake, my girlfriend at the time cheats on me. And I'm just like broke. I'm in debt. I'm just like in the worst shape of my entire life. Yeah. I just feel like if there was the moment to kill me, that was the moment. Yeah. And I was like, why am I alive? Like, why? Like, it makes no sense. It makes no, like, I was trying to figure it out. Because I was like, it makes no freaking sense to me that I am alive. Yeah. No sense at all. And I was trying to find meaning for the longest time. I couldn't. Everything that I worked on, like paid, was me being physical at one place, acting, comedy, all that stuff. Is like I had to be there, and I couldn't at this time. So I had to learn how to work from home. I had to learn how to make money off a computer. Yeah. And it was very tough in the beginning, very tough. I even did network marketing at the time, which I don't recommend to anybody, but I had to do it. And but it sent me on a very interesting journey. And in a way, what looked like a disaster was a gigantic blessing in disguise for me. Because going through that journey, I had to, because it was just like I had to literally get away from everything that I knew. Everything. All the friendships, all the things that I've done, everything. I legit had to abandon it all to let a whole new world come into my life. And it was this marketing entrepreneurial world that I never seen. Yeah. And it's structured and it's organized in such a way that you meet the most incredible people you ever met in your life. And you can't even believe that there's people like this in the world. And it gave me so much more faith in humanity, because there's bad people there in that world for sure. There's bad people everywhere, but like there's genuinely good people that want to do good. And I'm so happy that happened to me, because it just changed my perspective on life and like what's possible, what's even possible. And I met people like that are just doing, like, they're building wells in freaking Tanzania, and they're doing like crazy things. I even got involved with this dude named Javon Langford. Shout out to Javon. And we did this thing called the Mentor, and we did it for a couple of years. And it was a nonprofit where we go to like different schools, specifically where there's troubled kids in troubled neighborhoods. And like one is literally right here in like LA, that by LAX is called Lennox Middle School. That school is one of the schools with like one of the highest percentage of like the kids out there are destined to either do crime or be in jail and do things like that. And they legit live not that far from the beach. And the majority of those kids have never seen the beach in their lives.
Yeah.
That's insane, bro. When I found out those things, I was just like, I want to be part of this. And like, we legit went to these schools. You can check it out on Instagram. There's an Instagram called The Mentor. And we went to these schools for years. And we were giving kids team bonding exercises, teaching them how to meditate, teaching them about emotional intelligence, teaching them about opening up, about what struggles they're going through life to us and their friends, and having more trust on teachers and counselors. But then once I got better and everything, I just got back into the world that I know, which is like the creative world. I started like just producing and doing things with more passion. I started producing live events, specifically stand-up comedy shows and music shows. And then all of a sudden last year, I started becoming more passionate about music, but specifically I was producing music videos for rappers. Yeah. And then seeing their process and how they work and how fun it is to be in the music world. I'm like, I want to do it. And since Puerto Rican music is hot everywhere now, it's like, I want to do it. And I, like, under the name Rich Port, started releasing music, like rap in Spanish. And again, it's just following that principle of, like, I do things based on passion of, like, if I find that outlet, I want to do it. But I want to do it mainly because I want to show other Latinos that that's possible. Yeah. And that whatever it is that you have in your brain, doesn't matter how crazy it is, you can make it work and you can make it happen. Because something that I started as a hobby, like YouTube, because when I started YouTube, you couldn't make a single cent out of it. Anybody that would YouTube back in the day was completely out of hobby. And I did it because of that. Once it shifted into you can get paid, then it's different, you know, because people say, oh, you can make this a career. But even gaming, bro, when I was growing up, that seemed like a waste of time. And literally esports is going to surpass the salaries of NBA players. Yeah. That's insane. And the world that we live in is constantly changing. There's way more opportunities than never before. And there's still going to be more and more opportunities for you to be creative and do and develop so many skills. But you cannot box yourself into like, I'm just this. Literally, we live in an era that's like a brand new, even better Renaissance period that you can be multiple things at once. And the more you embrace those things, the more you'll be able to achieve in life. But the more you box yourself or let other people box you there, the more it's going to keep you from having potential opportunities to do so many other things in your life.
So, you know, if someone was looking you up, you know, what is something that you would like to like point them towards? You know, what is like the stuff that you've been making or you're working on that you're proud of?
Stuff that I've been making, I'm proud of. I would say I'm very proud right now of a Wendy's national campaign that's running. Awesome. The Wendy's Frosty. You might have seen him. There's a guy, aka me, eating chocolate frosty in front of a fountain that's by USC out there by the gardens. And there's a girl saying, oh, is that a Wendy's Frosty? And I was like, right, yeah. And they're right now for 50 cents. And then she jumps into the fountain. And that commercial's been playing insanely all summer, bro. It started in May, and it's been like running all summer. And even I had so many phone calls, text messages. Like all these people, bro, hitting me up going like, yo, I saw you. Oh, that's you? And like all this stuff. And even me going to Vegas and seeing in like big TVs, like doing ESPN or whatever. It's like, it's so fun to see because I remember just like a couple of years ago, I got casted on the show, which is a great show too. That's something you can catch me on. It's called Stop the Bleeding. I'm on season 6, 7, and 8. They just finished season 9, but I'm not on that one. And
spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. And that show, I'm not dead or anything. It's just my character wasn't brought back for season 9. But on that show, I met a kid there that I just saw him and he just had he had a brand new Mustang, like so much stuff. And when I see people that they look like they've achieved something, I always ask questions.
Smart.
Like, you always got to ask questions. And I asked this kid, I'm like, yo, so you're kind of my age and whatever. Like, how did you achieve all of this? And he's like, oh, I just booked a commercial and been living off of that for like a year and a half. And I was like, wow, I can't wait for that to happen to me one day.
Yeah.
And for that to happen to me now, and the scale that has been, like, literally this commercial has been played like almost 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And every time a commercial like that, of that magnitude, gets played that much, you get paid for every single play. So you get a lot of change because of that. So I'm very proud of that commercial.
I'm sure.
I'm so proud.
I'm sure. And somewhere where people can see your writing, your performance. I mean, for the LA area, anything that you are sort of working towards, something that you want to sort of put together.
I would say my writing is all over the place. I'm sure you'll see some episodics coming soon. I've been working on a lot of writing and stuff. It's just I'm very, with my writing, I'm very protective. And I know a lot of writers get that way. They don't want to like put their stuff out too much, or have people read it too much and stuff like that. And but I would say like the writing that I'm really putting out there the most is my music. So anything Richport, just look for Richport Raps online, and you'll find everything: music videos, songs. My goal this year for 2019 is to release a total of 78 songs, and 81 as an overachiever, so 3 more because of Kobe. I'm a big Kobe fan, so when he dropped 81, that was a big moment for me. I got so excited. So I'm trying. My goal is 78, but overachievers 81 this year, just this year. That's like about 3.5 years of work in 1 year. Because I'm like that. I'm a hard worker. I just want to crack them down. And everything else, Steve Dez. Just look for Steve Dez online. I have comedy shows. I was producing this show called Nobody Sober. It was on Tuesday nights at Skiptown Playhouse. So I did it for over a year. Right now we're on pause. I can return anytime I want. It's just for the things that I'm focusing on right now, I need to kind of stop doing comedy for a little bit. Also, so I'm not telling the same stories. I need to experience life and get you only get again, going back full circle what we said earlier, like you only write from what you know. And I don't want to write the same things. I want to experience different people. I want to experience different stories. I want to go to different environments. So when I come and write something, I can write from all these diverse experiences of life.
And I always ask the guests, who are the writers they admire, either heroes of yours or people you see working or friends of yours, just so, the listeners at home can check them out and maybe even I could interview them. We're always looking for new writers. Yeah.
So first I'm going to hit you with people that if you get them, bro, you got to get me, in the same room because I got to meet these people. Dave Chappelle to me is one of the most incredible. Like he's highly regarded as a stand-up comedian, but to me, he's one of the best storytellers I've ever seen in my entire life. You can see what he got on Netflix, and already with that is enough. It's good enough. John Leguizamo, one of my biggest inspirations. That dude is a creative genius, and he was a goofball back in the 90s. Now he's using comedy as a vehicle to educate people. Like he has that Latin History for Morons or something it's called on Netflix, and that dude is absolutely incredible. Right now, people that you will definitely need to get here, they could have been recommendations of other people that I feel that they're great storytellers. Shoney Francis is a guy. He's from Second City. He's an incredible storyteller. Shane Hartline, great friend of mine. He lives in Atlanta, but he has like dual living. He lives in LA and Atlanta. So when he's doing acting stuff out here, he's here. But he's an incredible storyteller that also like grew up on the YouTube realm. And let's see, Jenny Lorenzo, good friend of mine as well. She's an incredible YouTuber, Cuban. She has the Cuban abuela character. Yeah. So she's a friend of mine. She's a great storyteller too. Jessica Richmond, oh my God, you gotta have her. A great friend of mine too. All these people I'm telling you, I can connect you with them very easily. She's incredible. She is a writer, director. She's empowering so many females to just like have the same power of storytelling and producing their stories out there. She just, one of her series just got approved on Amazon Prime, called Baker's Dozen, and some of Rich Port's music is there in a couple episodes. Who else? Patrick James Lynch. He's the creator of Stop the Bleeding. Great storyteller guy. He's all about hemophilia. He wants to educate people about the hemophilia community and people that are going through that bleeding disorder, because his brother died of that and he has it.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know about it. I didn't even know about it when I got casted. And like, he's a great guy. I would say also the Chunga girls, Mimi and Laura. They're the Chunga girls on YouTube, and they play these characters. They became famous because they did a parody song of Fergalicious, and they call it Chungalicious, and that became huge in Miami.
Okay, gotta check them out.
They were just recently in Caso Cerrado too as the character, so
hilarious.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
They're killing the game on social media and all that. Yeah, they're doing it. And who else? There's so many people I can name, but like
it's like an Oscar speech, you know?
Yeah.
Don't feel bad if anyone gets left out.
Yeah.
It's just off the top of your head right now.
But storytellers, I would say those that you haven't had, I would think those will be the best.
Okay, so I'll reach out to Dave Chappelle's people.
For sure. And Joe Leguizamo.
Yeah, see, maybe they'll return my DM. Okay, so...
Oh, Felipe Esparza too. Hit up Felipe Esparza and Joey Diaz. They're two comedians. I know them slightly, but yeah, they're cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love when people shout out their friends, because ideally you love the people you're around, you love the work they're doing. So the last question we end on is, I have the writer title the episode. So there's a prompt. The prompt is a blank Latinx writer. A
relentless and super mega Puerto Rican Latinx writer.
All right. And I think that speaks for itself. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. A lot of great gems in here, so I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. So thank you so much for listening. There'll be an episode next week with a brand new writer. Bye.